Oh. Okay, hey everyone, this is Finance Meets Real Estate. So as you guys, some of you know, we meet here every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're a YouTube channel, so this video is going to be on YouTube tomorrow. So we are a live webinar for finance, analytics professionals, real estate investors, etc. So we have amazing guests here every week. So today we have David Dodge. So he is the owner of Discount Property Investor. So he's going to talk about like the famous BRRRR method. So for some of you who don't know, this is like buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat method. So that's a method to generate like infinite returns in real estate. Typically in residential real estate, can be done in commercial real estate as well. So David has flipped over 700 houses and owns over 90 rentals. That's like very impressive efficiency over there in my view. So David, he's a real estate investor and coach. He's the host of the David Dodge Show and Discount Property Investor podcast. So yeah, so with that, I'm gonna pass it on to David. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat. We're gonna have a Q&A at the end.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me today. I'm so excited to be here, guys. So again, David Dodge, that's my name. And I've been full-time in real estate for only 8 years. Doesn't, not that long, really, at the end of the day. I've been investing in real estate for 18 years. I'm 38 years old. So I started this when I was 20, and I was just buying rental properties. But I was doing it the wrong way. And we'll get to that in a minute. Over the last 8 years, I've been full-time, and I started out as a wholesaler. And that's where most people start when they go full-time. I didn't have good credit. I didn't have a ton of money. I didn't have any money. In fact, I was $63,000 in credit card debt when I started this 8 years ago. And I was able to pay off all that debt in less than a year. And I just jumped into wholesaling. Wholesaling was what I did exclusively for about 3 years. I still wholesale at least 1 or 2 deals a month. But I did nothing but wholesaling for about 3 years. And then about maybe even 4 years. And then about, 4 years ago, give or take, I realized that wholesaling is a great business. By all means, still do it, still love it, but it's not going to make you wealthy. And being an actual real estate entrepreneur or an investor will. So I use these skills of wholesaling to start buying and holding properties, which is what I did for 10 years in the beginning, even though I did it the wrong way. Now, at this point, we love to buy rentals, excuse me, and do it with little to none of our own money. And we do it by using the BRRRR method. But the cool thing is we need to buy rentals at deep discounts in order to do it with little to no money. So in order for the BRRRR method, and we'll get into that, what it is and how it works in just a second, but in order for us to even use the BRRRR method, we got to find deals. This strategy doesn't work when you're paying full retail. It just doesn't. And over the last, 4 years, 5 years, give or take, we've bought in over 200 rental properties. And as of today, I have over 100 units still. Some of those we sell off as, markets decline or certain things happen. But this strategy is amazing because I own about 65 single family homes, and I have over 40 units in, multi-unit buildings. And as of right now, today, I don't have $1 invested into those properties, meaning I didn't have to put any money down to buy them. Now, in the first 10 years, I did. That's why I did it wrong. But as of right now, all the properties that I own and have, and all the properties that I buy each and every week and month to add to this portfolio, I don't use any of my own money, and I don't have any money invested into these deals. Now, here's the cool thing. By using the BRRRR method, we're able to acquire real estate with little to no money. It's an awesome strategy. Now, here's the thing. This is not really a strategy for beginners because it does require capital, because sometimes you have to show the bank that you can pay the bills, even if you don't use the money, right? It does require credit because you have to get loans. Part of this BRRRR process is to refinance, all right? So this is definitely a college level, course or strategy, but it is my favorite strategy because, you know, as of now, I can acquire assets with little to no money, ideally no money, and I can add them to my portfolio, which is going to make me wealthy. It's already made me wealthy. It's made me millions of dollars. And it pays me over $20,000 a month in cash flow just on my rental properties alone. That doesn't include any of the fix and flips or any of the wholesales. So it's a very, very, very cool strategy. So how did I do it wrong, guys? For 10 years, I'm sure everyone's thinking, you know, that question. The way I did it when I first started was like most people do. I went and I decided that I wanted to be a landlord and that I wanted to buy a house. So what did I do? I went and found a real estate agent who was a friend, and I had him locate some properties on the MLS that I could go look at and make offers on. And we found one. And in fact, we found a bunch of them, right? And we made offers on these, and we got one that we really liked and that the sellers accepted the offer. Then I walked into the bank and I said, hey, I want to buy this property and I want to live in one of the rooms and I want to rent it out, which is like house hacking, right? Maybe you've heard of this. It's just called house hacking, where you buy a property, you live in one of the rooms and rent the rest of them out. Or maybe it's a multifamily and you live in one of the units and you rent the rest of the units out. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. I did that. And the bank said, okay, Dave, that's a great idea, but you still need 20% down. And we're going to lend you as a bank 80%. Well, the average property that I bought back then and today is roughly $150,000 property. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and I do most of my investing within the state of Missouri. So if you do the math there, guys, 20% of 150 is 30K. So in these first couple properties that I bought, the very first one, and for the next 10 years, I was basically either saving 30 grand. And that's not even really the truth. The truth is most of the time I was borrowing 30 grand, getting the loan from the bank to then go buy the property. And then I was paying that 30 grand back over a year or two. You can see how this is not a good strategy. It's slow. It's hard to save that kind of money. It's hard to borrow that kind of money. So over 10 years, guys, I did it 12 times. Basically a property a year, and 2 years out of 10, I got lucky and was able to do 2 in 1 year. Woo! That's not that exciting though. At the end of the day, that's not that exciting. Now on a good month, I'll buy 6 or 8 houses. And on a good month, we'll add 6 or 8 to the portfolio. So it's very, very different. I'm not having to do, it's not taking me 10 years to do it. Now I can essentially do in 2 or 3 months what took me 10 years to do by using this strategy called the BRRRR method. It's awesome. So don't do it wrong. Don't buy off the MLS. Don't go buy it through an agent, because that means it's on the MLS typically. And don't put down 20%. There's a better way to do it. All right. Now, here's the thing. Again, I mentioned this is a college level course. So I'm going to go through this and I'm going to explain it to you. And it's going to sound very simple. And it is simple in real life, as simple as it is I explain it. There's a lot of moving parts to this. So if you are brand new, this is kind of weird that I'm going to say this, but if you are brand new, this is probably not the strategy for you. You should start with wholesaling, because wholesaling is going to teach you how to market, how to run appointments, how to use contracts, how to get yourself positioned into deals, how to flip those deals with little to no money, and how to get a lot of experience and a lot of skill working with people and working with real estate. And then once you get comfortable, here's the cool part. Once you get comfortable, you can start cherry picking the best deals that you come across, and you can start adding them to your portfolio using this method. So I teach people the BRRRR method. It's my passion. I love it. But I also coach people on how to get that first deal, like 0 to 1. Because that's where I started, and I believe that's where you guys should start too. So we're going to talk about the BRRRR method today. However, just know that you need to get deals on property for this method to work, and it is an advanced level course. So if you are new, you're going to learn a lot in the next 30, 40 minutes, excuse me, but you should probably start with wholesaling, because it's going to be an easier way to get into the business. Additionally, inventory is low right now, which makes it more difficult. And there's inflation happening in the background, which means interest rates are rising, which makes it even more difficult to get a good loan on a property. So we're getting squeezed right now as BRRRR investors. But if you're really good at it like me, it doesn't matter. We can still find deals, and I can pay a little bit higher rate to the bank because we'll just buy a better deal, and it won't matter at the end of the day. So those are just some disclaimers. Again, guys, thanks for having me. Really honored to get this opportunity to come teach you guys. I've been teaching real estate for over 5 years at this point. I have hundreds of students and I just really love it. It's my passion. I've done pretty well with real estate. And at this point, I just like to help people and give back. So let's jump on in, guys. I'm going to throw a slide up on my screen here. And if you want to make me the featured speaker, it might be easier for people. I don't know if our host can do that or if you guys have to do that or not.
Actually, it's seen well. It's good now.
Is it back? Are you guys seeing it right, or do I need to flip it?
I think we're seeing it right.
Like, do I need to mirror it? Is that better?
No.
I guess it's not. It doesn't matter, right? Can you see
No,
that? It looks like it's backwards on my screen. Can you read it though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. All right, so guys, this is the BRRRR method. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of this slide. And where's the one that I really want? Is it this one? Yeah, this is the one I want to start with here, guys. This is a good one here. Okay, so BRRRR method mastery. What is the BRRRR method? And simply put, guys, it is a method for acquiring lots of cash flowing assets with little to none of your own money. That's what this method is. All right. So what is the BRRRR method, guys? It's an acronym. I'm going to take a sip of water here so I'm not squeaking. All right. So as you can see, it is B with 4 R's, and that stands for BRRRR. It's an acronym. The B is buy, but really we got to buy it at a discount with other people's money. That's how we're going to make a bunch of money in this business, and how we're going to be able to do it with little to none of our own money is we're going to actually be, let's see if I can't get this on there. We'll just leave it, make it big. It doesn't matter. But we have to use other people's money to make this method work. And we have to buy at a discount. It's so incredibly important that we do it that way. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rehab this property or update it, right? That rehab can sometimes be, you know, paint and carpet. Other times that rehab can, you know, be 50, 60 grand worth of work. It's just going to depend on the property in order for us to determine what that rehab is going to look like. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to rent it out at top of the market. And the reason that we're going to be able to rent it out top of the market is because we've rehabbed it. So not only is it going to be worth more, it's going to appraise more, but it's going to be able to demand a higher rent from our tenants because of the fact that we've rehabbed it. So renting it out, we can either do ourselves or we can take that to a property management company and they can help us with it. I personally don't do any rehab. I have contractors for that. I personally don't do any leasing or property management. I have property managers for that. So I like to be hands off in this business. But, you know, in the beginning, I did do some of the rehabbing myself, and I even did some of the leasing myself. And as I matured as an investor, I no longer do those things. So the cool part about this is that you can outsource a lot of this method. So then once I buy it at a discount, I rehab it and I rent it out, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to refinance, or I'm going to pay the debts and I'm going to get a fixed rate. So I'm going to pay off the debts that I used to borrow for this other people's money, which could be the purchase, could be the rehab. Ideally, it's both plus interest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a fixed rate for 3 or 5 or maybe even 30 years when I do that refinance. And it's going to allow me to pay off the person that I borrowed the money from to buy it. And then last but not least, guys, I'm going to repeat this process. I'm going to do it 10 to 20 times, and then I'm going to be free. Now, why do I say that I'm going to be free? Well, most people can get by with $5,000 or $6,000 a month to pay all their needs, all their bills, maybe their mortgage, maybe the rent, the food, you know, insurance, whatever it may be. We don't need $50,000 a month. In fact, most people don't make $50,000 a month. A lot of people get by on $2,000 or $3,000 a month. But my goal when I first started this method at scale about 5 years ago was to get to $5,000 a month in cash flow and passive income from rental properties. So I didn't have to have a job or a boss, and I could be free. And a lot of my properties will cash flow $400 a month. So if you have 10 of those, that's $4,000 a month. If you have 20 of those, that's $8,000 a month. And if you have 20 of them, that's $8,000 a month. Even after vacancy and turns and property management, you know, you're still going to essentially get to keep 5,000 to 6,000 of that. So 20 rental properties allowed me freedom to quit any job that I had. And I didn't have any at the time I was wholesaling, but a lot of people that I coach do. And it allows you to have financial freedom. You can make money while you're in town or not. You can make money if you're sleeping or awake. You can make money if you're at home or if you're on vacation. And it's the coolest thing. That's what real estate does. It provides financial freedom. But guys, here's really what it provides. It provides time freedom. Now you're going to have to work really hard to get rental properties and use the BRRRR method. Again, I've said this multiple times. It's a college level course here that we're teaching today, but it's possible. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm not that smart, I promise you. So this financial freedom that spits off from the real estate provides me the ability to have time freedom. That's really the most important thing. I want to be able to go to the park anytime I want. I want to be able to go to the pool with my wife anytime I want. In fact, when I'm leaving this, I'm meeting her up there. We're going to swim. We're going to get some dinner up at the country club. I want to be able to go on vacation or go down to my lake house and hang out with my friends. I want to be able to do all these things, and I don't want to have to ask somebody permission. So the time freedom is really all of our goals at the end of the day. If you ask most people what their goal is, they're going to say, well, I'd like to, you know, be able to be comfortable, and I like to have my finances taken care of, and I like to have this financial freedom. But why? If you ask them why, they're going to say, so I can do what I want when I want. So really everyone's goal, without them even knowing it, is that they want time freedom. The cool thing is with real estate, guys, you get both. You just got to work really, really hard. All right, let's throw another slide up here. We talked about what it is. We talked about what the acronym stands for. It's BRRRR. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then my favorite, repeat. And that's the cool part about this method is it's very, very scalable. You can scale this method, very, very scalable. All right, let's throw another slide up here. All right, when it comes to the BRRRR method, we're going to be using 2 simple ways to achieve a simple goal. So the goal is to be all in for less than 75 or 80%, somewhere in that range. Obviously, less is better, but we will not be all in for more than 80% of what it will appraise for after the rehab is complete. Okay, that is the goal, to be all in for less than 75 or 80% of what it will appraise for. So guys, remember in the beginning when I told you I did it wrong for 10 years? Well, what I did was I went and I bought a property and I used a bank to help me buy it. I didn't rehab it. I didn't have it rented prior to buying it or you know, refinancing it or whatnot. And there wasn't any value that was created. And because I bought it on the MLS with an agent, I paid full retail. So what that means is what I paid was about what it appraised for. It may be appraised for a few thousand more, but not much. So I was essentially paying 100 cents on the dollar for the property. That's not the best way to do it. Don't do that. Don't be like Dave for the first 10 years. What I want you guys to do is try to be like Dave now, because now Dave doesn't pay retail for properties. I buy about 100 houses a year, and I maybe pick up 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe at the most 5 a year on the MLS. But I buy 100. So guys, that means that 97% of the deals that I get and I find and I buy are off market. And that's why it's so important. All right. So let's throw up another slide here. This one here. Oh, not this one. We'll end with that one. I want this one. Okay. The simple way, number one, we just talked about there's 2 simple ways to achieve the goal. And that goal was to be all in at 75 or 80% or less, right? Simple way number one, guys, is we're going to buy the property at a discount. And guys, this is where wholesaling comes in. All these skills that we learn as wholesalers gets us in the door. It gets us the ability to find good deals and help people and solve problems for them while getting properties at discounts. Ding, ding, ding. Now you see why I love wholesaling, because I can cherry pick the best deals that come across my desk and I can keep them, because ideally I'm going to get a 15 to 20% or greater discount on that property. Simple way number 2, guys, is I'm going to increase its value by rehabbing and updating the property. So ideally for every $2 that I spend, for every $1 that I spend, I want to increase the value by $2. That doesn't happen always, but that's what we shoot for. So in the beginning, when I was doing it wrong, I was buying properties at full retail. Now what I'm doing is I'm buying properties at deep discounts, 15, 20% minimum, sometimes 30%, sometimes 40%. Those are the hard to get ones, but those are the best ones, right? But ideally, they're at least a 15 or 20% discount when I buy them. And then what I do is I rehab them. And let's say I go spend 20 grand. Well, I'm hoping that I can increase the value of that property by at least 20, because then I'll be breaking even on that investment that I spent. But ideally more than 20, right? So if I spend 20, I want to see the value of that property increase by 30 or 40. And that's forced appreciation. So between the coupling of the discount, which is equity day one, 15 or 20%, hopefully, maybe more, and the forced appreciation, those are the two simple ways, guys, of rehabbing that property, I am going to gain myself 20, 25, maybe 30% equity in the deal. So I'm no longer paying full retail, doing it the old way. Now I'm doing the Burr method, the new way, buying at a discount, rehabbing the property, which again, I mentioned it before, but I'm going to say it again, does a lot of things. So buying at a discount captures equity. Rehabbing will force the appreciation, creating even more equity. But guess what else it does? It makes the house pretty. It reduces any capital expenditures that I may have with that house, meaning I might not need a new roof for 10 or 15 years. I might not need a new HVAC for 10 or 15 years. I'm going to do the kitchen. I'm going to do the bath. I'm going to do the flooring. I'm going to update that house and I'm going to make it really nice. And of course, I'm going to have maintenance. All properties have maintenance. And of course, I'm going to have to, paint it and keep it up to date whenever the tenants move out. But those expenses are going to be minimal when I go in the beginning and I do all the big expenses. I do the roof, I do the windows, I do the HVAC, I do the kitchens, I do the baths, maybe even some plumbing and landscaping. I do all the big items in the beginning, but that reduces any big expenses in the immediate future. And when I say immediate, I mean like 7, 10, 12 years. I don't want to deal with a new roof on a house for 15 years, hopefully. So I'm going to do all that in advance, right? And that's the cool part about this method is it is going to reduce that capital expenditure. It's going to increase the value of the property with the rehab. But the coolest part too, guys, is it's going to increase the amount of rent that we're going to be able to charge on this property. So what I do now is I use this method. I don't go to the bank until the very end. The bank is still involved when I buy a property, but now I'm going to the bank last. I used to go to the bank first. So here's how one looks. I'm going to lay it out. I'm going to go through one more slide and then I'll open it up for Q&A. Now what I do, again, recap really quick, what I did before, find an agent, go to the MLS, make an offer, get a loan for 80%, borrow the other 20%, move into it, rent out the other rooms, pay the 20% back over 2 years. That's the old way. Here's the new way. Now I'm going to locate a really good deal because I know how to. I'm a wholesaler. I know how to market. I know how to find deals. And I'm going to put that property under contract. And I'm hopefully going to get it at least 20% discount, sometimes 30%. Then I'm going to go to the property. Maybe I go there before I get under contract. Maybe I go after, and I'm going to determine how much it's going to cost to rehab it. And let's say that the rehab is 30 grand. Then I'm going to go to a private lender or a hard money lender, and I'm going to borrow as much money as I can. I'm going to try to borrow 100% of the purchase, and I'm going to try to borrow 100% of the rehab. So let's say the purchase is 70 and the rehab is 30. I'm going to ask them for 100,000. And if they give me that 100,000, then I'm going to agree to pay them back with interest in a couple months, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Then I'm going to take that 30 grand that they give me on top of the money that I used to buy it, and I'm going to fix that house up. I'm going to rehab it. All right. So I own it now and I'm fixing it, but I bought it and I'm fixing it with someone else's money. Again, this is college level, guys. Okay. Next, once I get it all cleaned up and fixed and looking pretty, I'm going to rent that property out. And I'm going to find a tenant. I'm going to hire a property management company, or I'm going to meet them at the property like I did in the beginning for 10 years. And I'm going to get a lease signed. Now I'm going to go in the bank. It's the last step where it used to be one of the first steps, right? Now it's the last step. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk into that bank and I'm going to say, hey, I got this property. I already own it. I just rehabbed it and it's rented. So these three things are very, very important because in the beginning, when I walk into the bank, I didn't own it yet. There wasn't any rehab done and it wasn't rented. So I've got three things that are big differences here now, right? So now I'm going to walk in, I'm going to say, I already own it. I don't need to get a loan to buy. I need to get a refinance, which is way less risky in the eyes of the bank because they're not creating new risk. They're just transferring risk. They love that. That's number one, right? I already own it. Number two, it's rehabbed. So the bank's risk is dramatically lower because if they have to foreclose on me, which has never happened and hopefully doesn't ever happen, but in the event that it did, they'd have to take this house. Well, that house has got a brand new roof and a brand new HVAC and all these updates. It's going to be easy for them to unload and they'll probably make their money back, if not make some money on it. So their risk has been substantially lowered by fixing and updating this property. And then the third thing is that it's rented. And that means that I'm asking the bank to help me with an asset, not a liability. And for those that don't know the difference, assets make you money. Liabilities cost you money. It's that simple. A vacant house is not making you any money. In fact, there's taxes, there's insurance, there's maintenance, there's utilities. It costs you money to own it. But a property that's rented is paying for itself and it's making you money every single month. So I'm bringing them a property that I don't need their help to buy. I've already bought it. I'm reducing the risk because they know that it's been updated. And in fact, I show them pictures typically. And number three, I'm delivering them an asset, not a liability, because it's making money and it's paying for itself. So now when I walk into the bank and I get ask for a refinance, the bank doesn't say, Dave, what did you pay for the property? We're going to give you 80% because I already own the property. When you're buying a property, they're going to give you an 80% loan typically, maybe a little less, but typically for simple conversation, they're going to give you an 80% loan. Well, if I already own it and I get a refinance, they don't ask me what I paid for it because I already own it. Now what they care about is what's it worth? What will it appraise for? And guys, the goal with the Burr method is to be all in, purchase, rehab, interest to that lender that you borrowed all of it from, closing costs, utilities, whatever. But if you can be all in for 80% of what it appraises for, and you bought it at a discount and you forced appreciation, creating a lot of equity, which we do all the time. And let's just use an example. Let's say the bank says that the bank sends the appraiser out and the appraiser says, hey, this property is worth $150,000. We're going to appraise it for $150,000. If I'm all into it for 70 in this scenario for purchase, 30 for rehab, maybe another 6,000 or 8,000 of interest. That's 100 and let's call it 108, plus another 1,000 or 2 for closing costs, plus another 1,000 or 2 for random items. Let's just round it up to 115. Well, guys, the bank's going to give me 80% of 150. That's 120. So in this example, when I go to refinance, I pay back my lender with the interest and I pay back myself for all the additional costs. And I might even walk with $5,000. Whoa. Now I own an asset with bank leverage, no money down, no money invested. And in some scenarios, I can even walk with money. Amazing. So guys, why rentals? Last slide, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. Why rentals? Rentals cash flow. Passive income is also taxed less than the earned income. And hopefully you guys are talking about this a lot on this because I think this has got something more to do with finance than it does real estate. But I don't know about you, but I don't want a ton of earned income. That's the highest taxed. I want as much income as possible coming passively because it's taxed lower. Rentals also give you the opportunity to create good debt. In fact, I owe the banks over 15 million right now. And that's actually low. I want to get up to 100 million. But good debt's debt that somebody else is going to pay off for you over 20 or 30 years, maybe even less in some scenarios. So I love debt, especially debt that someone else pays off. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt's credit cards and consumer debt. Good debt is real estate that's rented. I also love rentals because we can use leverage. We can use other people's money to buy. We can use other people's money, AKA the bank, to refinance. But guys, remember when I said I don't like to do that much these days because, I've matured as an investor? Well, I can also leverage my property manager. I can also leverage my general contractors, and I can leverage title companies, and I can leverage banks, and I can leverage private and hard money lenders. At the end of the day, I'm really just a professional check writer. I borrow money, I buy assets at deep discounts. I fix them up. I go get loans from banks and I pay my lenders back. And now they're happy because they got their money back with interest. And I'm happy because I got an asset that's paying me $400, $300, $400, $500, $600 a month. And somebody else is paying it off over 20 or 30 years. The banks are happy because they were able to give me a loan that makes them interest and it's long-term. And I've also reduced their risk because I've rehabbed the property and I've given it to them rented as an asset. All right. Let's see what else here. Appreciation, guys, over the last from 1968 to 2004, 36-year period, we saw an average of 6.5%. We all on this call know what happened to real estate over the last 24 months. It's gone up 20%, if not 40% in the last 24 months. The thing is I don't bank on appreciation, but I love it because it's icing on the cake. I'm looking for cash flow. I'm looking for good debt, and I'm looking for the ability to use leverage. I never bank on appreciation. I never buy on appreciation, but I know it exists in the background, and it's usually not 6.5%. That was a 36-year period average. I look for maybe 2 or 3 or 4%, but over the last 2 years, we've seen 20+%. So appreciation is a real thing. And then the last two, of course, are those tax benefits, guys. We can depreciate this property, which basically means that we can tell the IRS that we have spent more money than we've actually spent legally. They actually tell us how much we can tell them that we can depreciate or essentially create a phantom expense on our taxes. And the way you're taxed, guys, whenever you own a business, is it's your income minus your expenses. And then what's left is what's taxed. Well, because we can use depreciation, we can offset that even more by having phantom expenses that we don't actually have to spend. It's depreciation 101 when it comes to real estate. And then last but not least is the wealth creation, guys. We aren't taxed on wealth. We are taxed on income. And you guys hopefully talk about this a lot. I don't know. I'm not on these calls, but I think this is the single biggest thing that most financial advisors neglect. What they want to do, a lot of financial advisors or just individuals in general, is they want to teach you and tell you how to go make more money. And they want to create income for you. But the problem is income is taxed. I don't want more taxes. I want less taxes. So how do we do this? How do we grow wealth without creating income? What we do is we capture equity in properties. And that's what the BRRRR method allows us to do. So that 20% that I don't have to put down, that I can earn by buying at a discount, and that I can force appreciation by rehabbing. Sometimes it's 30%, sometimes it's 40%, sometimes it's 50%. But that equity that I can capture, guys, is wealth. I can cash in on that at any time by selling that property. Or what I can do is I can go to a bank and I can borrow against that equity, and I can put $50,000, $100,000 in my pocket tax-free because it's not income, it's debt. So the lesson here is don't focus your time and energy on creating more money. Obviously, you need money, obviously. But the more money you make and the more money you earn, the more taxes you pay. Whenever you capture equity, you're creating wealth, and you don't pay taxes on that captured equity until you sell that property and you cash in. But if you build a bunch of equity up and you borrow against it, you can create income that's tax-free. It's debt. It ain't income, actually, at the end of the day. So what I like to do is I like to shoot to make $500,000 to $1 million in equity, which is wealth every year, versus trying to up my income to $500,000 or $1 million a year. Now, of course, I make a couple $100,000 as income. I have a good life and make good money, but my goal isn't to double or triple my income. It's to double or triple the amount of wealth I can create in a year, because guys, wealth is taxed. Wealth is not taxed. Income is. And that's the biggest difference between those people that are rich and those people that are poor, is they don't know that. So now you guys all know that. So don't focus your time and energy on trying to double or triple your income. Unless it's really low, then I get it. I would too. But once you're comfortable, focus your time and efforts on creating wealth, because wealth isn't taxed and wealth will snowball. You can borrow against that wealth, or at any given time, you can sell that wealth, turn it liquid into cash. It's going to be taxed at that point, but you're not paying that tax if you don't want to, because you don't have to sell. unless you need to. So that's really where it comes down to, guys. So we'll open it up for Q&A. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this and learned a few things about the BRRRR method and real estate investing and taxes. I'm very, very, very passionate about this, and more than happy to help you guys. So let's go ahead and open it up. Stefan, you want to be the MC here, bud?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Actually, excellent lecture on BRRRR and equity versus income, right? And it's a great insight there. Like, entrepreneurs don't focus on income. That's it. Nobody does.
Most don't.
And so, right. And so, yeah. So one question we have in the chat from Kelso, I guess. So, what banks do you recommend to refinance for properties in Illinois?
Love it. So it doesn't matter where you're at, guys. I always recommend go to the local banks and the local credit unions. Reason being is you want to get loans in your LLC. You don't want to get loans in your social security number or your name. You can go get 10 of them, but the local banks are going to be much more easy to work with. They're going to be much more investor friendly, and the local banks are going to be the banks that are actually going to want to lend to your LLC or your entity or your EIN number. Also, the local banks aren't going to sell those loans off on the secondary market, aka Wall Street. They're going to keep those loans in-house, and those loans are referred to as portfolio loans. So when I walk into a bank, I say, hey, I want to get a portfolio loan to my entity. And what that means is I want to get a commercial loan to my business. And no matter where you are in the United States, there's a local bank within 50 miles, maybe even within 3 miles or 2 miles if you're in a big city. There are tons of them. Don't go to Bank of America. Don't go to Chase. Don't go to Wells Fargo. They're not going to be easy to work with. They're not going to want to lend to your entity. They're not going to, keep that loan in the portfolio. They're going to sell it off. So what banks do I recommend? There's tens of thousands of them. Just stay away from the big ones. That's the advice I give you. Now, that also goes for credit unions. Credit unions are obviously typically small and local, and they will do the same. They will lend to your LLC. They will give you commercial loans. They will keep those loans in-house, and it's going to be a much more favorable person and bank to work with, or credit union, and it's going to be easier and it's going to be quicker. So just local banks and credit unions is the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm. So a question that I got from Scott, actually, which I'm very interested in myself. So can you explain in detail how you're buying so many off-market deals at such deep discounts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I
think that's the real question for me, at least. Sorry to interrupt, Dave, because the method is amazing, but the real difficulty is there. Yeah,
the real difficulty is finding the deal, guys. I'm gonna be straightforward about it. Again, the wholesaling is easy. I can typically teach somebody how to get their first wholesale deal in 2, 3, 4 months, depending on how hard they work. If they don't work that hard, it may take them 5 or 6, let's be honest. But a couple months, I can typically teach people how to get their first deal. So here's how we do it, guys. It's very, very simple. We have to understand that this is a marketing business. If we want to go to the MLS, that's pretty easy. We find an agent, or we get our license and we get access, or we go to Zillow and we look for properties on the market. Very simple. Well, whenever I'm finding deals, I am marketing directly to the seller. So what that means is I'm sending mail. I'm putting ads on the radio. I'm driving around. I drove around today for 3 hours and looked for properties that looked like hell, right? They had broken windows. They had boarded up windows. They had holes in the roof. I'm looking for these distressed properties. I have a team of people in my office that work with me, and we're constantly cold calling. We're constantly cold texting. We go to networking events. So we're getting out there and we're marketing the fact that we are looking for distressed people and distressed properties. When we find these people and these properties, we have to get them on the phone. So no matter what type of marketing you're doing, marketing is really just another way to say, get people on the phone, for those that don't know. So we're doing a lot of different things, all these different efforts to get people on the phone. Once we get them on the phone, we try to determine what problems they're facing. Do they have recent death? Do they have disease? Are they getting divorced? Are they getting evicted or not evicted? That wouldn't make sense. Are they getting, foreclosed on? Are they back on their taxes? Are they not taking care of their property? I mean, a lot of these problems aren't necessarily great problems, but the cool thing about us as investors is we can come in and we can help them solve some of these problems. So what we do is we offer convenience to them in exchange for a discount, and then we're able to get a good deal on the property. It's that simple. So we have to do some sort of marketing to have the opportunity to get them on the phone. When we get them on the phone, we're going to make a friend with them. We're going to ask them why they really need to sell. People don't typically just sell a property just because they need to sell a property. They need to sell a property because they can't afford it, or they owe somebody money, or they owe the government money, or they're having to move out of the state, or there's usually some other problems. We try to get to the root cause of why we're on the phone with them. Why did they respond to our marketing? Or are we calling them because they have a property that we drove by that, looked vacant? We're going to call them. We're going to ask them, why do they own a vacant property? That's pretty stupid, right? And do they have interest in selling it? And we're going to find out what their problems are. And we're going to offer to make their life convenient by solving problems. And in exchange for helping people, guys, we're acting with integrity here. That's the cool part. And in exchange for helping them solve some problems and get that house sold, we're going to make a hefty profit. So we can wholesale that deal. Or like I said, I cherry pick my deals, the best ones that I like. I don't want to do a BRRRR method on a rental property in the hood. So I'm going to wholesale that one. But when I get one in a B neighborhood or an A neighborhood, even, I'm going to keep that one. But whenever I come across something in a C or a D or an F neighborhood, I'm going to wholesale that one. So I use these skills of marketing and making friends and solving problems to find deals. Great question. Excellent question.
So Dave, just to add to that, so how many people you have working on that? Because that's a lot of work, even to be able to find, even 6 to 8.
Yeah. So I got 2 people on my team that do acquisitions. I got one person that does lead management. Mm-hmm. And then I got one person that cold calls and sends text messages all day. And then one person that will either be out and about driving around or here in the office helping the rest of the team. So it's not a big team. So at the end of the day, it's me and 2, 3, and 4 other people. That's it. Mm-hmm. And we spend, including their salaries and marketing, which is I'm on the radio, I send direct mail. At the end of each month, we're probably somewhere around $10,000 or $12,000 in expenses. It's not that bad. Right now, we're also buying 5, 6, 7 houses a month on average, usually about 2 a week. So really more like 8 a month.
And like 10, 12 grand a month on marketing efforts or on the payroll as well?
All of it. Because the payroll is the marketing efforts in theory, right? We're paying someone else to do the cold calling. We're paying someone else to do the driving for dollars, or we're out doing it. Mm-hmm. So either I can do it or I can pay somebody to do it. Direct mail, obviously, I just click a couple buttons and it sends it out to 500 or 1,000 people, but I still got to go pull the list, scrape off anything on there that I don't think is going to be appropriate and save money. Like I don't want to market to on-market people. That doesn't make sense. I don't want to market to people that just bought the house 6 months ago because the level of motivation is going to be extremely low. Right. And I don't want to market to somebody that doesn't have at least 30% equity in their home, because how am I going to make a profit? How am I going to capture equity if they don't have it? So I'm always scraping out on markets, somebody that's got less than 30% equity or somebody that bought the house within 6 months. Other than that, I want to talk to them. I want to see if they have a problem in their life that I can help them solve. And in the way that I can typically do that, even though the house might not be the problem, is to buy a property from them. They all know that they're going to give me a good deal on it. That's what a discounted property looks like. It's a good deal, right? But why are they okay with it? How are they okay with it? They're okay with it because I'm helping them solve a problem. Sometimes the house is the problem, guys. But here's the cool thing. Sometimes it ain't the problem. Sometimes it's the spouse or the kids or the boss or the government or God. Maybe they have disease, right? It's not always fortunate things, but it's really cool that we're able to help them at the end of the day. And we get paid. And here's the cool thing. We create win-win scenarios too. We help the seller sell a property and solve a problem. That's a win. We help a buyer, a landlord, which I am, a rehabber, which I am, or whatever, another investor, get a good deal on a property. Because when we're wholesaling, we're buying great and selling good. We're leaving meat on the bone. And then we in the middle win as the wholesalers because we get paid. So when we do a deal, we're helping so many people. We're helping sellers, we're helping buyers. Oh, and guess what? We're helping title companies get business because we have to hire them to transact the deal. We're also helping general contractors get hired because when we find these deals and give them to investors, they have to hire contractors to fix them up. And then at the end of the day, we're helping the community by bringing the property back up, and we're offering it, and we're giving it having it have the ability to then be a rental or a fix and flip to put a nice family in. So all of these efforts are with integrity. They're helping create jobs and income for lots of people along the way.
That's
Great question.
That's a great point, Dave.
Isn't that a great point?
It is, yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, we're helping bring the neighborhoods back. We're getting paid to do it. We're solving problems for people, and we're providing a lot of jobs along the way.
Mhm.
Very cool.
The question, another question on the chat. So how do you deal with the risk of not able to find tenants, renters?
We don't buy in neighborhoods where you can't find them. Just prevent the risk altogether and stay out of the neighborhoods that you know you're going to have a hard time renting in.
Mhm.
Go to the areas that there's not very many rentals, or people want to rent from, and you have no problem at all.
Mhm.
That's
So
a great question, but yeah, don't
choosing the
overthink
right
it, man.
neighborhood.
Just stay out. I mean, if you think that this neighborhood's going to be hard to rent, it's probably going to be hard to rent. So don't buy it there. Wholesale that one. Let
Mhm.
someone else deal with that problem.
Okay, so another question from Daniel. So what's the length of time between acquisition, rehab, and refinancing?
Great question. Acquisition, from the time that, we buy the property to the time that we start rehabbing, it's usually only a week or two. The time frame to rehab it can take anywhere from 1 to 2 months. And then once it's done, we can usually get it rented within 5 to 7 days, often quicker, but usually call it 4 or 5 days is a pretty good average from the time it's done to the time that we can then get it rented. And then once we get it rented, we take it to the bank. And then usually the bank takes anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to refinance. Refinances are such quicker processes because, again, we're not asking the bank to create new risk. We're asking them to transfer risk. We're bringing them a product that, is all updated and rehabbed, and it's an asset. So like the process is super quick and streamlined. So from the time that we buy it to the time that we refinance it, here's the deal. I'm going to be very transparent with you guys. I don't want to lie. It's not my MO. For me, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 months. For you or for me in the beginning, there's this thing called seasoning. And the bank's going to want to either see that you've owned it or that you've rented it for 4 or 6 months, typically. I've negotiated with all of my banks and lenders and credit unions, and this is what I love teaching my students how to do, is how to prevent having to do seasoning. But often the only way to do it is to build a relationship and to show the bank or the lender that you have experience, which means you do a couple deals with them. But once you do 2 or 3 of these deals, you can get that seasoning to go away altogether. So that's me being as transparent as I can, guys. For me, it takes 3 to 5 months to go through the entire process. If you are new to this, again, this is a college level course here, guys. This is not 3rd grade that we're talking here today. If you are brand new, the first couple, they may take 6 to 8 months, but that's okay. Who cares, right? If it takes 6 to 8 months to do a couple of these, and then you can do 3 or 4 or 5, and then you go to the bank, and you can even go to the bank after 1 or 2 and negotiate it down to half. Maybe it's only 2 or 3 months now, right? But there's 2 types of seasoning. One would be how long you owned it for before they let you refinance, or the second would be how long you've rented it for. So I always try to negotiate with the bank, if I'm working with a new bank, that, I want my seasoning to be from the time that I buy it, not from the time that I've rented it. And I can usually get them to agree, because I can show them how many other rentals I have and how I have good credit, and then I pay my bills, right?
Okay.
But usually after you do 1 or 2, you can get it to go away altogether. So the answer, there's a 2-sided answer there. It's going to be anywhere from 3 to 8 months. The better you do it and the more you do it, the less time it will take. How about that? That's a good way to sum those together. Love that.
Awesome.
Great
Awesome.
question.
Okay, Cheryl, go ahead with your question. Actually, I see you there. Yeah, Cheryl.
Oh, hi. I think I
Hey,
was on
Cheryl.
mute. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. What's going on? What's your question?
Oh, don't mind me. It's pretty hot in Boston.
I was just in Boston just last week. I got my Boston t-shirt on.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's my city. Yeah, like really, really, really born here. So, but I just got out. I'm always trying to escape, I feel.
I hear you. So what's up?
It's born, your roots. Okay, so I get the Burr method pretty good. I just I was asking about syndicating, and I'm kind of like, I think I'm getting more higher level as far as like with my knowledge goes. But what was my question for you?
Here, I'm looking at it right now. Wholesaling is like syndicating, right? What's the difference with subject to? So those are three different things, and I'll explain them all to you really, really quickly. So wholesaling is finding a deal at a great price and putting it under contract. All right. You're not actually buying the deal. Now you can if you want. I teach people how to do it without any money. So let's say that I go and I find, we got Scott Edward here. I find Scott, and Scott's motivated, right? And Scott's like, hey, you know, I need to sell this property, and I can go get that property at a good deal for Scott, but I can help Scott solve some problems along the way. So he's happy to give me a good deal, right? And he gives me that deal at, let's say, 80,000, but it's worth like 150. All right. So I'm going to send Scott a contract to buy that property at 80. And then I'm going to go to this group right here, and I'm going to say, I got a deal. I'll sell it to you guys for 90,000. It's worth 150. I'm leaving meat on the bone. Now keep in mind, I didn't buy this yet. I found it, I located it, and I put a contract to buy it. So I have what's called equitable interest. I have control, even though I haven't purchased it yet. So now I have this $80,000 contract, and I go to this group and I say, does anybody want to buy a deal for 90,000? That's worth 150. And if I have a bunch of real estate investors in here, I should have everybody's hand up, because that's still a good deal. And what's going to happen is they're going to pay me $10,000 to get out of the way. That's what wholesaling is. It's just flipping paperwork. So keep it simple. Don't overthink it. It's flipping papers. It's not even flipping houses. These papers give you the ability to buy the house, and you're selling that to someone else, and then they come in and buy it. That's wholesaling. Burr method is a method that we use with rentals. So that's a whole different ballgame. That's properties that we get good deals on, but we don't just flip the paper. We go borrow the money and we buy them, and we hire the contractors and the property managers, or maybe we do that ourselves if we're handy and we know how to, and we want to lease, and then we go to the bank. All right. Syndication is a whole different thing. Syndication is typically used more upon big apartment complexes or very big commercial deals. I guess in theory, you could syndicate a small single family home, but syndication typically means is that I'm going to have a general partnership and I'm going to have a limited partnership. And the general partnership is going to be me, and I'm going to own 20 or 30% of this deal. And I'm going to go raise all the other money, and those are going to be my limited partners, and they're going to share 80% of the deal, but I'm going to go use all that money that I raised to go get a loan to buy a big deal. So I might not have any money invested as the general partner. I may use all my limited partners' money, but the loan's in my name, and I'm going to manage that thing. And that's where I get my 20% or 30%. That's even higher level than Burr. All right. Syndication is a beast of its own. I'm in the process of putting together 2 funds to start doing it, but I only feel comfortable doing that after 8 years of full-time real estate investing, because it's very high level and you don't want to lose people's money. Right. So we talked about wholesale. We talked about Burr. We talked about syndication. The last thing that you had asked was subject to. Subject to is another creative way to buy a deal. So what we're going to do with subject to is we're going to find somebody that's motivated to sell. Maybe they want to give us a really good deal. Maybe they don't. I've even bought properties a little under retail. I don't like paying retail. That's just kind of dumb to do, but I'll go with a less of a discount. So let's say a property's worth 100 grand. I may buy a property subject to for 90, but here's the cool part. When I buy a property subject to for 90, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy it subject to the existing loan. So if somebody doesn't have a loan on the property, you can't buy it subject to. It's impossible. You're buying the property subject to the existing loan that's in place. So let's say that I'm going to use Scott Edward again, because his name's right at the top of my screen here. Let's say Scott's a motivated seller, and I come in, hey there, my man. Whenever let's say I get Scott on the phone from my marketing efforts, and Scott's a motivated seller, and he says, Dave, man, this property's worth 100 grand. I owe 90 on it. I can't really give you much of a discount, and I got to get rid of it. I'm moving out of the state. And I can say, well, Scott, you got a loan on this property, right? And he says, yep. And I say, cool. What if I take over the payments on that loan and I buy the property from you subject to the existing loan? The deed's actually going to transfer out of Scott's name and into mine, but I'm going to essentially be responsible for making those payments. So again, all these things are different things. Subject to, you can do that on a single family home. You can do it on a commercial building. You could do it on an apartment complex. but you got to find a seller that's motivated enough to let you take over those payments. And they're trusting that you're going to make those payments. So again, you have to have a very high level of integrity. You know, I don't ever teach people to go do something that's going to screw them or anyone else. That's not what I'm about. I'm just not. Right.
Yeah.
So I want people to have a high level of integrity. And oftentimes when people are buying subject to and they run out of money, guess what they do? They quit making those payments and they screw people. So I'm not a big fan of it or a big advocate of it. I do it because I know I can pay people. But I always caution new investors. It's a great way to get in if you don't have any money. You don't even need to go qualify for the loan. You just take over the payments, right? It's very, very good, clean way to get into the business. But if people don't have integrity, it's a terrible strategy.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. I do subject to, I buy them all the time. Here's where subject to can be very valuable. I'll give you guys a super quick example.
Is that good in a foreclosure situation?
No, because, well, and you can if you're willing to catch up the bank. Otherwise, the bank's going to foreclose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's a good strategy if you have enough money to catch up the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 payments. That could be, you know, that could be 20 grand.
Yeah.
However much they're behind, you have to catch it up to get it out of foreclosure. So here's a great example of how subject to it can be an amazing strategy. I'm not against it. I do it, but I think you guys can tell I want to proceed with caution because people can get into trouble using these strategies the wrong way. So I just want to make that very clear. But here's a great example. Let's say that Scott, my man Scott here, he's got a deal. I'm on the phone with Scott, you know, and again, Scott's got to get out of town. He's got to roll. I mean, I bought properties from people going to prison, but they're like, I'm going to prison next Friday. Can we close Wednesday? And it's like, hey, if you want to give me 50 cents on the dollar, we'll get it done. Right. But at the end of the day, I'm still helping him solve problems because if he goes to jail, he ain't selling the property. Right. So again, some of these problems that we're helping people solve are really, really great. So back to our scenario. Scott's got a deal and it's worth 150,000 and it needs 20 grand worth of work. And he's willing to sell it to me for 100 because he owes 100. So I say, Scott, I can't pay you more than 100 because it just doesn't make sense, but I can buy it subject to your existing loan. So I can basically get you out of having these payments every month. So I then acquire the property for no money, but I do have to pay his payment. So if it's not rented, I have to come out of pocket every month until I can either sell it or get it rented. But I don't need to go get $100,000 loan. I don't need to borrow it from a bank. I don't need to borrow it from a private lender. I don't need to borrow it from a hard money lender. I don't need the 100 grand. I just make payments on the existing loan. Now I've got $100,000 property. I can go get the 20 grand and use a credit card, or I can borrow it, or I have it personally, but maybe some people don't. They can get it. And now they have a property worth 150,000 with 20,000 out of pocket because they owe 100 to that loan. And if they sell it for 150 and let's say they net 140, they made $20,000 without even having to buy the home. So subject to is a very cool strategy. It's a very powerful strategy. It's an awesome strategy. Let's be honest. Yeah. But those people that don't act with integrity screw us all over and give it a bad name.
Right, because once you take over the payment,
God, I'm not picking on you, man. You're using your name.
Yeah, this is all hypothetical. So once you take over the payments, you're the owner, right?
Well, no. Once you have to do so, like when you do a subject to purchase, you go to the title company or a closing attorney in the 5 or 6 states that's required. But typically, you just go to the title company and you tell them that you're buying this property, but you're keeping the existing loan in place. And when that happens, the bank can do what's called they can execute or activate a due on sale clause, which essentially makes that property note come due. But if the payments are getting made, they don't really care. They always can come back at any time and activate that due on sale clause. So again, there is risk here. And there's a lot of people out there just saying how great this strategy is. They're not talking about all these things. There is risk there. Now, I personally never had this happen, and I personally have never even heard of this happening. But that due on sale clause is a real thing, and it's in every single mortgage statement, all the packets, all the paperwork, right? So some people will get creative. You can call it smoke and mirrors. You can call it creative. You pick. But what they'll do is, what was my guy's name? Scott Edward here. Let's say that I'm buying a property from Scott again, and the name of the property is owned in Scott Edward's name. Well, check this out. I can go create an entity, an LLC called Scott Edward LLC. So I can buy the property from Scott Edward, and it's going to transfer from Scott Edward to Scott Edward LLC. The bank, when they see that or notice that, they don't think twice. It's in the guy's name. It's just in the business owned by, it's in a business that's named his name. But guess what? Scott Edward doesn't own Scott Edward LLC. David Dodge owns Scott Edward LLC. So again, you can call that creativity. You can call that smoke and mirrors. You can call that whatever you want, right? But that's how a lot of people will do this to prevent ever having to deal with that due on sale clause. But I can tell you from experience that the due on sale clause isn't going to be an issue if you have integrity and you make the payments like you agreed to. I think everybody here can agree with me on that part. Great questions, guys. Great questions. I got about 5 more minutes.
Thank you.
Then I gotta go meet my wife at the pool. She's waiting for me right now.
So, okay, so we're not going to be able to touch on all questions, and appreciate actually Dave.
That's all right. Yeah, we can answer a couple more though. But that was a great question because it broke down 4 different types of real estate investings and different strategies and how each can be used and how they're different. That was a great question.
So let's touch briefly. So it's a question on the chat as well on the initial purchase and rehab. Since you mentioned financing, so how do you fund the initial purchase and rehab?
Private and hard money lenders.
Private and hard money. Okay.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, if you don't have any private or hard money lenders, I don't expect you to. If you're brand new, go to the REIA clubs. That's the Real Estate Investment Associations. You can find them on meetup.com, or you can go on Facebook, find your local group. If you live in Boston, don't be searching in Charlotte. If you live in Vegas, don't be searching in Denver. Search for the Charlotte local real estate group. Search for the Boston real estate group. The small local city or even community or county is going to be your best bet. Find the local groups where people are meeting, just like we are meeting right here, right now on this Zoom call, and network with people. There will be people walking around these groups, handing out business cards saying, I'm a private lender, I'm a hard money lender. It's really essentially the same thing at the end of the day. A private lender is just somebody lending to you personally. A hard money lender is a business lending to your business. It's the same thing.
And do you ever
I have met 100% of my private and hard money lenders at REIA clubs. What does that tell you guys? Where am I going to go? I'm a pro at this. Where am I going to go to meet my next lender? I'm going to go to a REIA club. That's where you guys should go to. And if you don't get off the couch and you go meet these people and shake hands, they're not going to know who you are. You're not going to know who they are. It's so simple. Great question though. Great question.
Do you ever, so another question on the same. So do you ever use like private lenders for refinancing? I assume no, or use it?
No, because there's no need. I pay a private and hard money lender anywhere from 10 to 13% annual interest. And I can get a long-term loan at a bank. It used to be 4 to 5%. Now it's 6 to 7%, but that's still way less than 10 to 13%. So hard and private money on the front, bank and credit union on the back every single time. There's no reason not to do it any other way. You can't go to the bank in the beginning because they're going to want 20% down. So you got to buy it first with that private or hard money lender, but keeping a long-term note at 13% is super foolish. Get it to 5, 6, 7% long-term, 5-year, 20-year, 30-year, whatever. Great question. All right, guys, I got time for one more. I don't want to piss off my wife.
Okay. So let's pick last question. So you wanna pick yourself from the chat?
Yeah.
Dave?
Where do you find the REIA clubs, guys? Meetup.com, meetup.com, or the local Facebook groups. So go to the local, again, Charlotte. Let's say you live in Charlotte. Go to Charlotte Real Estate Investors and find the local group, and that group's going to have 200 people, maybe 2,000 people. Yeah, Bigger Pockets has REIAs on there too. I believe they talk about it or host some sort of information. But the local groups, just go in, join the groups and just say, hey guys, where's the REIA? I'm new to real estate. And you're going to have 5 people saying, oh, there's this one, there's this one, there's this one. Some of them are free. Some of them, they charge you 10 or 15 bucks to get in the door. So what? Go. We'll do one more and then I got to hit it. Let's see here. When do you cash out refinance? We already answered that one. I think that's it, guys. I think I hit them all. After you earn some money from the business, do you still borrow from private lenders or do you use your own cash? That's a great question. We're going to wrap it up with that. Personally, after I've earned money in this business, and I've earned millions of dollars, I still borrow the money to do it. And here is why. When I go for my refinance, all right, and they say, hey, Dave, this looks great. You got this property that you already own and you've rehabbed it and you've rented it. And now you're coming in here wanting to refinance. That's great. No problem. We're going to send the appraiser out. They're going to appraise it. And they're going to basically say, we're going to lend you 80% of what that number comes back at, right? Whenever I have to then submit the payoff of my existing loan, which I'll get from the lender, I'll ask, I'll say, hey, I'm going to close this loan next Tuesday. You know, what do I owe you? I know I owe you the 100, the 70 plus the 30 from our previous example, plus some interest. What's the interest? How much do I owe you? And they may say, you owe us $106,000. Well, when I submit that to the bank, they got no problem paying that other third party back. But when I submit a payoff from myself, then they look at that as a cash out refinance. And when they look at that as a cash out refinance, they're not going to want to lend me 80%. They're going to want to lend me 70%. And they may even give me a little higher rate, very, very small higher rate, but a little higher rate. So I don't want to have to be penalized because money's coming back to me. So what I want to do is I want to borrow 100% of it. So when I give the bank the payoff, they don't see any money coming to me, zero, and it all goes to somebody else. But guess what? Here's a pro tip, guys. What happens if I over borrow? What happens if I borrow 70 to buy it, 30 to fix it, and then 10,000 to put in my pocket? Now I have to have a really good relationship with my lender to do that. But again, over time, you have relationships, you build experience. You know, if you keep paying them off and giving them interest, they're going to start giving you what you want. So what I'll typically do is I'll over borrow 5 or 10 or sometimes 20,000, and I still don't have any money coming back to me at refi. Now, when I get that payoff, I send it to the bank and the bank says, hey, we see that you owe this guy 122,000, but 20 or 80% of your 150 is only 20,000 or 120. So that means I have to essentially bring $2,000 to the table to close, but I've already put 10 in my pocket. So I can bring the 2 and I still have 8 in my pocket. So I can do a cash out refinance. I just get the money in the beginning, not in the end. So you can get creative in this business. And that's the coolest part. But you got to buy deals and you got to fix these deals up and get them rented before you go to the banks. And that's where that hard money and that private money comes in. If you don't do it that way, you're going to have money left in a deal no matter what. So awesome, guys. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully everybody learned something. If you guys want to work with me, hit me up. I do have a coaching program. You can learn more over at wholesalinginc.com. That's where I coach at. And I help people with Burr method. I help people with their first real estate deal when it comes to wholesaling. We have 2 different programs over there. Would love to work with you guys. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me, but I do got to run.
All right, have fun.
Appreciate it. That was awesome.
And for me.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.